Welcome to the Volvo Ocean Race. It is day 5 of the transatlantic leg from Newport to Cardiff, and it is absolutely blazing out there. The boats are going so fast, and I'm joined here by Richard Mason.
Oh, it's nice to be here. What a fantastic day they're having out there. Perfect conditions, and records are falling as we speak. It's a day for the old girls. They're really seeing it.
Yeah, it's pretty
coming
impressive.
Into the game, yeah.
Now, you know, during the course of your career in the Volvo Ocean Race, you sailed on Volvo 60s, Volvo 70s, and then were involved in the 65s last time. Did you ever think that that record was going to break?
No, I thought our record that we had on the Volvo 70s, which Ericsson 4 had, I mean, that day, it was like the perfect day. Some of the conditions that they've got here, we had this beautiful rolling swell down in the South Atlantic, and we had the breeze from about the same sort of angle as these guys had, and we thought it was just, you know, those conditions were almost once in a lifetime. And it was a pretty intense few hours to get that record, and now these guys are, I think, 601 miles we're at the moment, with the tally still possibly to go up. That's impressive.
It's pretty unbelievable. However, more of that's come up. We're also going to be talking with Sci-Fi or Simon Fisher, navigator on Vessels Racing, who is currently out on the water to have his perspective on life on board. But first up, the big news is Axel Nobel has gone 601 miles. Let's hear from Simeon 10 Point out on the water. Oh, sorry. This is how they did it. So first off, they started in this beautiful straight line, as you were talking, Richard, that they managed to line things up perfectly, so there are no tacks or jibes, no major sail changes, and just surfing in that same sector of the cold front.
Yeah, they're well set up. I mean, the key is that they're not turning any corners, because this particular record's point to point, and they are just sailing in a beautifully straight line, and it looks like they'll keep going. And as they've been sailing along, the breeze has been picking up a little bit, and the sea state's just been in the right direction to help them surf a little bit. So it's just one of those days where everything goes right. They're looked after by the man up top.
Not your traditional definition of champagne sailing conditions.
Well, absolutely. That's what this race is all about. That is champagne to these guys.
Well, for these guys. So let's hear directly from the man himself, Simeon 10 Point, about his record. Well, Simeon, what can I say except for gefeliciteerd?
Gefeliciteerd. Thanks a lot. There's no off button on. We need to keep trucking, I guess.
And so what does it feel like for you and for the team to be the fastest boat in the history of the Volvo Ocean Race?
Well, for sure Martina is excited. So she can call her father Captain Slow now at the dinner table. And also Jules has a nice grin on his face to redo his own record from Ericsson 4. But no, it's pretty motivating for all of us. I mean, we just want to get first in Cardiff, and even that the weather still looks a bit challenging in the final 800 miles. I mean, this is motivating to keep pushing super hard and hopefully do well for the leg as well.
Now, Simeon, for you as a team leader and as a skipper, tell me how important this is for you personally.
It's great, of course, to be the fastest in the race, and especially this kind of conditions where we can do it, pretty safe in the boat. You know, big compliment to the shore crew who maintain the boat so well. So we have all the confidence now in this sort of circumstances to put the hammer down, and everyone's doing a great job. And so that's for me is most important. But it's pretty cool to be the fastest one in the race. You know, it's still it will be hard to win the race overall, but at least I won't be the slowest, hopefully.
There have been lots of comparisons between the North Atlantic and the Southern Ocean. Can you tell us about what the conditions have been like the last 24 hours and how different it is from being down in the south?
Yeah, for me, the North Atlantic, it's pretty challenging. You know, the last 35 hours we basically had a lot of different seaway because of all the current that plays a big role here, but also all the fronts that keep passing by so unbelievable fast leaves a lot of different waves, which makes the ride unbelievable wet. And but yeah, we are lucky to now lift on one of those fronts and ride it all along across, and that's pretty insane. I mean, the force of the water coming over is just incredible. You know, when you're helming, you're so strapped in that sometimes it's like people throwing it's like the sea throwing a bathtub on you, and you just, you know, you have to breathe for 3 seconds and check if your arms and legs and head's still on. and you just keep pushing again. So it's pretty physical and challenging, and in some ways, you know, for me, a lot more challenging piece of water than the Southern Ocean, which is of course more isolated, but this is for sure more rough.
Excellent, Simeon. Dankjewel. Well done. Talk to you soon. I'd just like to apologize there for my Dutch. Formal apology to the entire Dutch nation.
Yeah, Kiwi shouldn't take on other languages, mate.
Absolutely not.
Should have figured that out by now.
But you're a Kiwi and you live in Sweden, right?
Yeah,
because
that's right.
after all of your projects were based there.
Yeah, well, it's projects and family. But
Yep.
incredible. I was watching the footage there. The beautiful angle they've got lined up, and they've got the J0 up, which is we didn't expect it to be a key sail at these angles, but I think that's what some of these top boats have figured out, how to really use that sail. I mean, you can see just the way the boats were lining up with the waves, and there's a lot of rocker in these boats, so they've been able to really utilise that, and
It's
where these speeds
all
are
about
coming
getting
from.
the power up.
Oh yeah, and they're keeping it up. It looks fantastic.
It does, and actually this is something that we've been, a theme that we've been touching on during the course of the entire race here, is that all of the deeper, more powerful sails are not actually getting that much use. You know, the A3 doesn't get used offshore.
Well, these boats power up very early on there. They don't have a huge amount of riding moment, so you can see they've got a reef in pretty early on there, but that's just all giving them a control, and you can normally tell by how much they're moving the wheel around as to how balanced the boat is, and I could see there in the footage of Exo that, you know, the helmsman was moving it very, very little, so it means the boat's locked in, you're averaging high speeds. The faster you go, the easier it is, the more control you have. So it looks great. It looks really wonderful. It'll it's going to be a heck of a story. I mean,
I certainly look forward to hearing the unvarnished version of it when they get to Cardiff. But let's just put this into perspective. 601 miles, it's 1,111 kilometres, which is basically the distance from London to Milan or New York to Chicago. But 600 miles is pretty important when it comes to offshore racing, right?
Well, it is. You know, when those of us that have done this race before, and you're lying in your bunk and you're sort of like, well, I've only got 5 more fastnets to go before I get there.
Exactly.
And, you know, fastnet for many of those people who partake in those types of races, the Sydney-Hobart, you know, that's normally a 3 or 4 day ordeal in a 40-foot boat. It can seem like a lifetime when you're on those boats. And now they're doing it in one day. In a 24-hour period, you're knocking out 600 nautical miles. So that looks great if you can average that always to the end, but these guys are going to slam into another form of wall in a few hours' time, and that's called no wind, which can be
much more challenging.
Then all of a sudden, being a bit uncomfortable doing 35 knots makes it look like a luxury.
Isn't it? Absolutely. Anyway, that's the come up, but let's have a look at where they are now and the conditions that they're sailing in. So this is where they are, still out in the middle of the Atlantic, although it is now just about 1,000 miles to go. But if you look at the tracks that they've got out there, Sunkunkai Scatterwag doing 20 knots, and so they've run off 543 miles in the last 24 hours, turn the tide on plastic. They've got up to 560 in terms of a proper run. Mafre there, not much better, considering the battle between the red boat and turn the tide on plastic, 565. And then we're up to Dongfang Racing, who has run off 571. And then we're into Vestas, 558, so a little bit slower than their neighbours. But then Brunel is in great company up there with Team AkzoNobel, 583 for the yellow boat, and then 601.47 for Team AkzoNobel.
It's still a big difference, though. I mean, Akzo have obviously found a gear in these conditions where they can really send it. Probably got something to do with Nico, because he's pretty good at sniffing out opportunities when it comes to heavy air sailing.
He's certainly done a good job there. And one perspective on heavy air sailing that we'd like to tap into now is that of Simon Fisher, the navigator on board Vestas 11th Hour Racing.
It's been a little bit bumpy in the last 24 hours or so, that's for sure. We've been picked up by this low pressure, which we've all been racing east on. Some of us from the south, some of us from the north, as I'm sure you know. But it started off as very pleasant flat water sailing, and as we've sort of got tangled up with the Gulf Stream and the wind has increased, it's got increasingly bumpy and uncomfortable. But no, it's been some really fast sailing and good fun, if not a little bit stressful at times.
Now, counting the miles, it looks like overnight you went faster than the Abu Dhabi record, which of course you were on board for last time. What does that feel like, and how close to the ragged edge did you think you were 3 years ago with Abu Dhabi? How fast can you go now?
It's interesting. I mean, with Abu Dhabi, it was actually in the Southern Ocean on the way into Cape Horn that we did our record run with the Volvo 65. and actually it felt relatively under control. It was some very, very different, rather than flat water and flat out speed, it was actually big, very big waves with Abu Dhabi, but all pretty under control. But I'd say, because this is on, and we were running with Abu Dhabi as well, whereas this has been a bit more reachy, and although the water's been slightly flatter, I think it's probably been slightly windier and slightly reachier this time round, so it's felt a little bit closer to the edge, shall we say.
I want you to hazard a guess. How fast do you think these Volvo 65s can top out at? What do you think the max speed is?
I think Ericsson 4, when they did their Volvo 70 record, were pretty close to 25 knots for 24 hours. So, yeah, I'm not sure whether anyone will get there in this run today, but I know Akzo Nobel has been going very, very quick. So if anyone's going to get close, it's probably them. But what the final number is, we'll have to wait and see. It's certainly been an impressive run, and I think they did a 6-hour sked of over 26 knots, which certainly raised some eyebrows on board this boat, that's for sure. So, but I certainly take my hat off to them. It's nice work.
You're coming to the end of the sleigh ride, and you've got a ridge that's going to start tomorrow that's going to complicate your life. Can you tell us a little bit about what's to come?
Yeah, things will slow down a lot. That actually means the wide open. We're going to see a big compression in the fleet, and really how the boats manage to navigate their way through that ridge, which could be, and a little bit open to randomness and luck as well as to where you go in and out, will have an effect on the fleet. Then on the other side will be into northerly pressure, and then probably maybe some kind of easterly as we get sort of into the Celtic Sea. It's going to be pretty tricky, and it's generally going to be quite light as well. So I think we've certainly got a difficult finish to the leg ahead.
So, I mean, when the boat's half underwater like that, it's almost amazing that we can even get any images or that audio back off Simon, right?
Yeah, the setup for getting the images off the boats is fantastic. This comes such a long way from the first editions of the race I'd be doing. It would have been a miracle if you could get the satellite dish to work in the first place, and we were dragging old film cameras out of rope tail bags on the side and take a few pictures when you got a spare moment.
No, things have come a long way, and
it's pretty cool to be able to bring it into the rest of the world like this.
It is. It's cool. You've always been good at that. So let's have a look at some shots here from Ericsson. So this is the program that you were part of in 2008.
Yes, she is.
And you were on Ericsson 3, trying to keep the boys on Ericsson 4 honest, right?
Yeah, our job was to keep them honest and beat them whenever we could. So we tried our best at that, and the record that we set then was down the South Atlantic. It was during the first leg, so we were coming down round from on our way to Cape Town, and we were about 1,200 miles out, and we had this perfect lineup of these beautiful waves, and we thought that was the ultimate day, and I think it was like 596.
596.
596 that Ericsson 4 got, but I think they had to jibe in the very end of it, if I remember rightly, and that sort of clipped a bit off. I think they sailed through the water, a little over 600, but yeah, we thought that was pretty full on. But obviously they're out there doing it in these boats, which is fantastic.
Really unexpected, but also we've seen some incredible speeds in the last edition. 550 miles was the previous record set by Abu Dhabi.
Certainly not slouching.
No, certainly not. And that's why it's so amazing to see so much speed coming out of the second lap of these boats. Clearly they know how to get the second gear or the top gear.
Yeah, I mean the boats have always been capable of it. A lot of it is just the conditions, and it's a combination of getting in the timing with the front, the wind coming through, and when you've left after a period of calm, the Atlantic's been quite calm the last week or so, and then you get a front coming through. You get the swell building from behind, and you get the breeze coming in, so you have this beautiful flat highway in front of you where you're not crashing into the backs of waves. So what generally slows you down at high speeds, it's not actually the peak speeds, it's the wave in front of you when you crash in the back of it, and you sort of...
You get a massive surf, big acceleration, but then your average speed is so low.
So these guys are probably not having near the sort of peak speeds, are probably not as high as they have been, but very high averages, because that's what the records are about, maintaining that speed for as long as possible. So I think the guys, if you were planning to do a transatlantic record attempt at the moment,
this
would have been perfect, about now. But unfortunately, the weather's going to calm down a little bit in the coming days. So
anyway, still impressive speeds, and to sort of learn more about how fast these boats can go, I asked Ian Walker just a few moments ago about whether he was surprised that these boats had so much left in the tank.
Well, they were running out of time, weren't they? They've had a lot of wind all race, but they've not had great conditions for setting records, because you need a certain angle of wind. You need the wind not to be too shifty, not to be too gusty, and ideally you need to be ahead of a front so that you've got pretty flat water. And they've had all of that and more, because of course they've got the Gulf Stream under them, probably giving them a pretty good shove and a load of miles for free as well. So it's been excellent conditions, and I can't really understand how Scallywag haven't broken the record. Maybe they're too far south to be in the Gulf Stream. I haven't got enough detail.
When the Volvo Ocean 65s were sort of introduced, they were sort of much maligned by many of the sailors, saying that they weren't as fast or as powerful as the Volvo 70s that came before. Can you sort of tell us a little bit about the differences between the boats and whether you were surprised that they can take out the overall record from Ericsson 4?
I mean, I think the big difference really is between now and Ericsson's record back then is where they are. Ericsson 4 set theirs in the South Atlantic with no tidal help, no current under them, and of course where they are right now, it's absolutely perfect. It's where you go to set records, because I don't know what they've got, but if you've got 2 knots of current, that would equate to 50 miles, in 24 hours. So it can make a pretty sizable difference. Although sometimes the current can make things harder, because it can affect the sea state and make the water rougher. What you really need for record breaking is fairly steady wind, because you can't afford to be changing sails. You can't even afford to be putting reefs in and out too often. Because, of course, if you have to change a sail, you're going to have to slow down below 20 knots to get people on the foredeck safely. So you really need it to be steady, and you need super flat water. And of course, they're sailing through an area where there's just been absolutely no wind in the preceding days, and they're just advancing through that. So, it's just a wonderful set of circumstances. But as time goes on, then the sea state builds and it gets harder and harder. So, it'll be interesting to see whether they can break the magical 600-mile mark. I certainly hope they do now. But I would imagine the sea state's building, and it is probably getting harder and harder.
Now, any final words, any final congratulations to the new title holders?
It's interesting, because when you start the race, you're very, very cautious, and you take things a bit easier. And then by the end of the race, you're just absolutely ragging the boats. And I guess it may be no surprise that the boats that are really excelling are the ones who aren't at the top of the leaderboard, because they have absolutely nothing to lose. They've really got a point to prove, and they've done a fantastic job. So hats off to them. They'll be very, very tired. And looking ahead, my only fear for them is it may have no real effect on the result of this leg, because it looks like they're going to sail into a brick wall of no wind at some stage. So expecting the fleet to concertina up. I'm watching it carefully, hoping to get to Cardiff for the arrivals, but just got to hope they arrive at a time that is suitable to my programme. But whether they arrive when I need them to next week or not, I'll certainly be there for the send-off from Cardiff in a couple of weeks' time. Can't wait to reconnect with the race and see a lot of my mates on board.
So, Ian Walker there talking about the expected challenging arrival in Cardiff, but there's plenty more to play between now and then. Let's have a look at the virtual eye to see what the forecast holds for us. Well, they're going warp speed now, but then tomorrow they're going to run into a brick wall of a ridge of high pressure, which is this zone in here. Now, Richard, there's going to be a big sea state that we saw in the photos, in the videos there, sitting there, and there's no wind. The boats are going to be flopping all over the place. What's that like?
Oh, it's going to be very frustrating, because you're sort of going to come in you'll have a very sodden and wet boat, and you'll sort of come crashing out of this pressure, and the boats that are behind you will come into you. And when you see this ridge sitting here, you've got to try and they'll be starting to talk about it now actually in the nav stations, and try and find the best place to cross it. Where is it narrowest? Because these gaps in between, these two winds go in opposite directions, and they cancel one another out. So in the middle there's nothing. So you need to find the narrowest point where you can sort of cross over and get into the new breeze. And also, not only when you do that, you've got to be thinking about getting into the new breeze and how you want to deal with your opposition as you come to a fixed point in the map, which is down in the corner of Ireland there.
So in theory, or the way that the models are showing it, is that the ridge is kind of triangular like that.
That's right.
And so we've got the centre up here,
yep.
And then you've got sort of the narrow portion down in the south here. So in theory, you want to cross in the south, but then if you cross in the north and make it through, then you've got a better angle, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's all about the end, because there's slightly different distances to sail down to this point. and sort of if the angle's a little wider, you can sail a bit faster, but you have to be sailing that percentage faster to cover that distance over the next person and gain the leverage. And also, this southern point of island down here is very high.
Let's have a look at the next challenge.
It's a very difficult area to deal with.
Yeah, so particularly because there's this tiny little localized depression that's going to be sitting here and actually destroying all of the wind that we'd normally be expecting to get out of the high pressure.
Yeah.
So big challenges in the Celtic Sea. What's your read looking at that?
Well, that's a notoriously difficult place to sail in. I mean, the first challenge is going to be getting around the bottom of Ireland here. Because it's very high, and there can be little localised breezes with this northeasterly where it actually comes down these valleys. So it's very high, and you can get pulses which actually generate and come down the geographical valleys and spread out. So, it's sort of, do you be inshore, offshore, and how do you navigate getting around that corner? And then you've got to deal with this whole area of low pressure, so no wind in here. And as you come into Cardiff, the tide there is enormous. The tidal flows in and out, and in some parts of the coast, you can't actually run as fast as the tide comes in there. So, there's a lot of factors that are going to come into it, and it's going to make Newport look easy.
Well, there were a few grumpy punters that were following the race into Newport, but the reality is the race is not over until your butt's on the dock, is it?
No, that's yacht racing for you. I mean, you could complain that there was no wind in Newport, but if that was the case, then we'd never sail across the equator. So
exactly,
it's a round the world yacht race, and that's the beauty of this part of the sport is that you've got to be able to sail no wind, and you have to sail in storm conditions.
Like we're seeing now.
So, it requires everything. That's the beauty of the Volvo Ocean Race. And the America's Cup, where you can go, it's not absolutely perfect conditions for us today, we're going to stay ashore and drink coffee. Well, that's up to them, In this race, you've got to be good enough to sail in everything and invent your own wind.
Well, there you go. That's the difference between the America's Cup and the Volvo Ocean Race and proper ocean racing. Probably get some flack for that one. But anyway.
I'll get some shitty emails in a minute, but that's okay.
It's all good. Anyway, tomorrow I'll be diving into more depth regarding the ridge. I'll actually build a demonstration to talk about why there's no wind in the middle, so stay tuned for that. I'll also be talking with Anderson Reggio, who is the performance analyst for Vestas 11th Hour Racing, with his hot takes as to how you sail through an area with no wind. So good luck for that.
Yeah.
Also, we're going to be trying, as an extra special treat, to get Martine Grail and Torben Grail, her dad, on the phone line together. Now, you used to work with him.
Captain Slow.
What's your take on that? Is he going to live that down?
Well, he's not a very competitive person.
No, not at all. Notoriously easygoing.
He won't mind the fact that his daughter's going to take all his medals and all his records. So I'm sure he's a very, very proud man.
Yeah, I'm sure.
I don't doubt that. I mean, it's the Grail family are a very, very alive family. Yeah. So I think there'll be plenty of sparring over the dinner table. But what a fantastic story to have. I mean, to have your daughter come out and steal your speed record.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's pretty cool.
Now, put you on the spot here. Can they hang on, take it? Can AXO, the paint wagon, as some people call them,
the paint wagon,
make it into Cardiff in first place?
Oof, no, I'm not gonna hedge my bets. I'm gonna go for a wild card. I'd love to see Brunel take this one out into Cardiff and really throw that first place wide open for the closing stages. That would be a fantastic result for the race.
That would be awesome. And speaking of which, we've got Bowie back in.
Bowie, there he is.
There he is. How's it going, buddy?
G'day, Bowie.
Oh, g'day. So this is our signed Bowie. He's a handsome chappie, and he can be yours if you guessed the correct number of Bowie beacons that they ran off in the last 24 hours. Although, frankly, given how fast they were going, unless you guessed that they were going completely warp speed, he's unlikely to be going home with you. Anyway, all of that's tomorrow. Thanks very much.